Welcome to Seaview Circle. This is our recap podcast in which we review our favorite TV shows and movies of the past, present, and possibly the future. And we do this all in service of our end goal of determining how highbrow or lowbrow our viewing taste is.
Now, along the
way, we
also
talk about vintage styles and fashions and filming locations.
Some of which are no longer
listening. What?
My name is Brady.
And
if you've just been watching this, we've been covering season 2 of Not Sledding. This is the longest running nighttime soap of its era.
I'm Doug. Hello. Welcome. This is going to be a fun one.
This is going to be a fun one, guys. Okay, we are here finally to dissect all things Gary and Val in season 2 of Not Sledding. People have been waiting for this.
And there is a lot to dissect.
There is a lot to dissect. Now, that being said, we are focusing simply on the relationship of Gary and Val, which means, because let's be honest, Gary is spreading himself thin in this season. He is all over the place. So if you want to hear more about Gary's kind of burgeoning relationship with Abby, you can check out the Abby podcast, a link to which is right there. And of course, we will also be covering more of what Gary's got going on over at Not Slanting Motors when we do the Sid episode, which is coming up soon.
We have got such a dense episode here. What we decided to do is to split it into 2 parts. So today we will concentrate on episodes 1 through 10, and the next one will be part 2, the remainder of the season.
In short, there is just so much to say about these two.
We love Gary and Val. There's so much to say.
And there's a lot to discuss, really, about what's going on in their heads with what happens in these episodes. To help us with that discussion, we are actually bringing in a special guest who will join us for the 3 featured episodes that focus on Gary and Val. And that is episodes number 3, Remember the Good Times, episode 10, Choices, and in the part 2 will be episode 13, The Loudest Word. Now, you may know Diane Letulier as the creator and moderator of the Facebook group Not Slanting Chronicles, or you may know her as the compiler editor of the cookbook Knots Landing Recipes and Memories. But if you don't know Diane, we actually have already interviewed her in a previous episode from season 1, and you can check that out in this link here. Now, because this episode is so jam-packed, we are going to save this week's very special letters from the sack for the more appropriate time during our coverage of season 2. Look out for that. And in the meantime, we do have some reminders.
Yes, please. Can you just like and subscribe if you haven't already done? This really helps the algorithm to get the channel out to many more possible new viewers. The other thing is, if you'd like to write us an email, we actually answer those, which most people
sometimes
don't.
A little late, but we get to it.
Yeah, we do get to it. So it's seeviewcircle, SEEVIEW, circle @gmail.com.
And that goes for all of our social media as well. It's SEEViewCircle. That's Bluesky, TikTok, and Instagram. Again, we are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so you can certainly help us in that endeavor. All right, now, shall we get started?
Let's
on
move.
all things
Let's groove,
Gary
baby.
and Val, season 2. We're kind of wearing our Gary outfits today.
Yeah, I'm wearing a members-only jacket that he wears.
It's the exact same one.
It's the same color.
I think Gary would absolutely wear this shirt. He would pair it with some very tight, small grain corduroy jeans that would hug the curves of his body very well.
I was going to say, if I had any more coffee left, I'd spill it on there. You could dab it off.
Well, we'll get to that later.
We'll get to that later.
All right, let's start off with episode 1. There's not really a lot to discuss in this one. We have just a little moment here when everybody's over at the Fairgates house and they're meeting Abby, right? She's just come to town. And I think Gary pulls Karen aside and says, listen, thank you so much for being considerate. You didn't need to do that. And she's like, what are you talking about? He says, you hid the booze from the party. You didn't need to do that. I'm okay, but I appreciate it. And so there's this nice little moment kind of reminding the viewers of what happened in season 1, that he had fallen off the wagon in episodes 12 and 13. And now he is back in the program and he has been sober for 3 months. The other scene we have going on is a moment between Val and Abby's daughter, Olivia, who's having a lot of difficulty adjusting with this divorce that her parents are going through. So she's doing that thing where she's repeating everything everybody says.
You know how irritating that can be when you have little kids around you and they're doing that like pig Latin and all that.
She's been doing that ever since she left San Luis Obispo. Exactly. That's a 2-hour drive.
Yeah, but you know what? It's actually very sweet, though, because you can see that Valine really cares about her, and you can tell that this relationship is going to get stronger.
She can see that Abby's not the most dedicated mother. And I think for someone like Val, who didn't have all that time with her own daughter, Lucy, this is a natural thing for her to kind of fall into this role. She did it with Annie in season 1 in the pilot, and she's doing it here with Olivia. And this continues throughout Knots Landing. We see it a couple more times this season as well. There's that great scene in episode 6 where Olivia is showing her how her mother
how mommy
puts
does
on the makeup.
Right.
She says, "Oh, you just put this little gunk right here, and you go like
this. You just go to the mirror."
It's a great moment that Tanya Crowe, I think, handles very well as this young actress, but it's really kind of showing, again, who this character of Abby is, and that she is allowing her children to be present in more adult situations that maybe they're not ready for.
Right.
This comes up again, I think, later in the season in episode 17, where Val is braiding Olivia's hair, and Olivia says, next time, can you do cornrows?
Yeah, which, okay, now I'm going to say, we've talked about this before, but, you know, at that period, this is like 1980, and the movie 10 was like the popular movie, the Bo Derek look.
Right.
That everybody was copying that
was a very
look.
Racy movie.
Oh, yeah.
And so you can see that she's seen it, probably,
she's probably watched it multiple times.
This is like my mom when I was that age taking me to see Body Heat instead of whatever the current
your mom would take you to
was.
the movies that she wanted to see, whereas most mothers will take you to the kids' movies.
Which I'm sure is what Abby was doing with Olivia as well. Clearly, Olivia is growing up too fast because Val is impressed that Olivia is so perceptive to see that when Jeff is getting them all this expensive camping gear to go to Big Bear, she says, "Oh yeah, he's just doing that so that we continue to love him."
Yeah. She understands the transactional relationships.
Out of the mouths of babes.
Well, yeah, out of the mouths of babes. And obviously she watches Abby, so she knows, you know.
There's another scene actually in the next episode, which is the second part of Hitchhike, where they all go to the beach, Santa Monica Beach. You can see where our friend used to live.
Yeah,
in
the shores.
Yeah. The kids are acting out again, and Val shows that she's able to subdue their brattiness. And so there's this moment where Abby can see that, oh, well, great. I have this built-in babysitter here that I can employ whenever I need. And she's free. She lives right across the street.
Yeah, I mean, I think we see that all through the season, that Abby is taking advantage of anybody she can who can look after the kids.
It's unfortunate for Val because Val really likes, obviously, Olivia. Maybe that's one of the reasons why she suggests to Abby that she stay in Knots Landing, because having that support of family and friends built in already will make Abby's life so much easier. Because as we know in the future, Abby doesn't make Val's life very easy.
She certainly doesn't. No.
All right. Now, we are going to move on to our very first of the 3 featured episodes right now. And to do that, we are going to be joined by Diane Letulier. Let's talk about the very interesting episode, Remember the Good Times. Hey, Diane. Thank you for joining us. Good to see you again. How have you been?
Thank you so much. I'm so honored that you asked me to come back. I have been great. And it's a cooler day outside today here in Ventura County. And I hope you guys are doing well.
We are doing pretty well.
We're doing very well here.
We are happy to have you here to discuss Gary and Val's storyline in season 2. I wanted to ask you, just in general, what resonates about these two for you? That because I think you've said that you see them as kind of your favorite couple on Knots Landing.
They are my favorite couple. I did not watch Dallas all the way through, but I know the storyline of how Gary was treated and Valine and the whole Lucy thing. So I just, I watched Knots when it originally aired. I rooted for that couple. I didn't really like how Gary behaved some of the time, but that was
We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it.
That was a love story that just, everyone always wanted them to figure it out and get back together and be better people. So yes, they're my favorite couple. I can't say enough about it.
Well, let's get into it. Let's get into the first of our 3 featured episodes. This is Remember the Good Times. And we kind of start off here with a scene where Abby is in the pool and she's suntanning because she can't be bothered with the mess in her house now that the movers haven't arrived. And she already has enlisted the neighbors to do her chores for her.
Right.
And I think Karen is folding the kids' clothes, and then she asks Val if she's available to babysit. And Val says she's not available to babysit because she has to go to a meeting, which then requires Abby to ask what kind of meeting. And then Val reveals to her that Gary is an alcoholic and he's going to an AA meeting that night. I think she says that he'll only go if I take him.
That was interesting to see those types of things, like Val saying, well, he'll only go if I take him. Like, that's not the proper way. There's Al-Anon over here for the Valines and the Judas, and then there's AA over here. Some meetings are even closed, and it's only for the alcoholic, like the spouse or friend can't go. So just a little commentary there.
So I think it's interesting because Abby's curious about this development, because maybe she already has her eyes set on Gary, him being a Ewing. The next scene is the AA meeting, and we see the woman, the doctor who helped Gary in the season 1 episode, Dr. Kramer.
Yeah, Diana
Douglas, who's Michael Douglas's mother. And they're at the meeting, and you can see that Gary's bored. Right? He's like doodling on a piece of paper, but Val is interested to hear what they have to say there. And then afterwards, after the meeting, it's Val who introduces Gary to Judy. Right? And this is going to be an interesting storyline going forward throughout the season here, this couple of Judy and Earl Trent. I guess it's suggested that Gary become Earl's sponsor because he's not at the meeting. He didn't arrive.
Yeah.
Gary is like not about it because he's like, oh, I'm too busy with
Knott's Landing Motors.
Right. Because the whole situation with Sid was, kind of affecting business at Knott's Landing Motors. And I think that Gary is wanting to sort of repay Sid back for all the good things that he's done for their family. So outside, there's a meeting where we finally see this guy, Earl Trent. I can't remember. Was he drinking in that scene?
I don't remember whether he was drunk or not.
I think he appeared to be a little combative, and he seemed like he wasn't.
We clearly see that behavior from him right off the bat, that he's very witty. And I don't know if it's revealed in that scene or maybe the next that he is a writer. So that's kind of where all his kind of witty remarks come from. But clearly you can see there's the relationship between Judy and Earl is difficult. This scene was filmed, actually.
Side note, we were watching it again. Like, I don't know how many times we watched it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I kept looking at it going like, Brady, that's like so familiar, that place. Like, I know it. And then it was funny because
this is the exterior of the meeting.
Yeah, the exterior of the meeting. It's a pretty famous church. I can't remember the name.
I think it's a Catholic church.
Yeah, it's got a school. It's in Santa Monica, and it's on California between 7th and Lincoln. We used to live like up the street from there. So I would pass all the time.
They probably really do have meetings at that church. A lot of churches.
I bet you they do. But
I would imagine. We should also mention that Earl is played by an actor with the name of Paul Rudd.
Not the other Paul Rudd.
Yeah, I was wondering about that
you're thinking of, right? So this Paul Rudd, I believe he did work up through, I'm going to get this wrong, maybe the early 2000s, maybe. I'm not sure. And then, of course, Judy is played by Jane Elliot. Can you tell us a little bit about Jane?
Jane is also Tracy Quartermain from General Hospital, or Lady Q, some people love to call her. She was on General Hospital, from the 70s. She's still on. She's still beautiful. She's still feisty and a brilliant character. So it was such a hoot to see her on Knott's Landing. And I want to say she was on General Hospital during that time, but what year were these episodes of Knott season 2?
This is 80, 81, I think.
Yeah, so she had to have already been on GH because I used to watch her with my mom in the late 70s.
Wow.
So, but she's something else. So it was interesting to see that side of her. She's such a good actress. So you don't, it wasn't like, oh, that's Tracy Quartermain. That's the actress, but she had a totally different vibe as Judy Trent. A vibe that was interesting to see someone behave like that with a husband like Earl and going after someone else's husband. And that whole thing was interesting to see. Like, does that really happen in 12-step programs? I'm always analyzing, do people really act like that? Or
well, it is a soap opera, right? And they want to be able to have, I think when we watch this season again in total for this podcast, this storyline, I don't know, it got me really a little heated on the Gary character, right? And also Val's response to it. But I think now that we have been watching it kind of scene by scene so that we can do the individual character podcasts, I see it now more as a tool to really show that love between Gary and Val. And of course it needs to be tested. It needs to be tested, right? This is a soap opera. We need to see that. So anyway, what happens here in this particular scene is that Val wants to help and she thinks Gary should help. So she invites them to dinner.
What? That's a mistake.
Gives Earl this little, I don't know, it's like a calling card because it has both Gary's business phone number and also their home phone number. And I think Earl just kind of tears it up in the
moment. He tears it up in defiance, right in front of them, oh, I don't need this. I don't need to go to AA or whatever it is.
I love the fact when Val asks Judy to come to dinner, she's like, really? Us? We're not really in demand.
Yeah, I thought that was funny.
Imagine, later on when we see that scene, you can see why. So then later on in bed, we have our first moment. This is what we call Take It Off, Ted. Take It Off, Ted. This is the first moment of the season. We're going to see a lot of it as we cover these episodes.
I mean, he gives He-Man vibes.
He-Man.
Yeah. Very He-Man.
If you open that up, this would be a good time.
Oh, okay. All right.
We have some viewer mail that we're going to open up here.
Great.
Quickly, Doug.
I have no idea what this is. It looks like it's a magazine. Oh, my God. You won't believe this. Who sent this?
Funny.
What? Oh, this is wild.
Oh my God. This is so weird. It's a muscle
magazine, but all the pages are these big, huge muscle people. Ted is nowhere near that.
No.
Here it is.
Here it is.
Oh,
there it is. There it is.
The
famous spread.
Yes. So those pictures have been floating around for a while. I like that one on the, yes. Yes. He
hates it, but he does it. It's funny. I was watching an interview with Ted Shackelford where he started talking about his time on Knots Landing and how he had to do certain things that he maybe didn't want to do necessarily.
Yeah, but he still worked out off camera. So it's interesting that article says he hates it because I think he liked being fit. I mean,
everybody likes being fit, but let's face it.
I think the thing is, in the course of season 2, he is really put on display by these producers.
Yes, he is.
I must say.
It's always with these complementary colors to accentuate the tan. He wears the powder blue hot pants shorts and butter yellow sheets on the bed. And it's always like that.
No casing.
Casing.
So in this scene, we have Gary wondering again why Val would invite this dude over. And she's preparing for bed. She's lotioning up her elbows. She does this a lot. I just always see her doing that, lotioning up like this. So it's like a character thing that Joan Van Ark must have put in there. Val says, oh, well, I really like Judy and, we should help them. But Gary is still very reticent. And he's not really that interested. But Earl pushes the envelope the next day at Knots Landing Motors because he shows up drunk.
Yeah.
And he's
causing mayhem inside.
Interrupts the meeting going on or whatever. And so
he's knocking some stuff
He knocks over a sign. But Gary kind of takes him aside and he kind of holds him. And then Earl just kind of collapses into him. So at this point, I think Gary's starting to feel, okay, I need to do something for this guy. So he brings him home to the Ewing home. And I thought this was a little strange because Val's there. And she's like, oh, I thought you weren't interested in helping this guy. And he's like, well, yeah, I gotta do something. And then he just leaves him there.
Yeah, he leaves. He goes
goes back to work.
He's like, I'm going to let him sleep it off and leave him there. And I kept thinking why?
Yeah, that's weird.
Why would you leave a strange man
with your wife?
With your wife.
With your wife.
Yeah.
So then Val invites Judy over to come pick Earl up. And we forgot to mention, by the way, that at the first scene, Val is so proud of this new set of dishes that she's purchased, her very first set of dishes.
Oh, right, because didn't she get her first set was from Miss Ellie?
Yeah, it was like on loan.
Yeah.
So this becomes a little bit of a plot point, unfortunately. So we have Judy telling Val about their backstory, about how they come from New York and they're both writers, and how she was so upset that Earl turned down some book option that he was offered. And she just kind of makes it very apparent that this dude's like a hot mess, which of course Earl comes down after sleeping it off, and he walks in just at that moment to hear this conversation. And then the daggers start flying between those two. And I think I don't know if it's Val who gets a phone call or she calls, and she's on the phone watching these two go back and forth. It's kind of funny, to see that, like, wow, this is quite a relationship. And it does feel like these two really should not.
They don't have a lot of chemistry.
Right. Right.
They don't look like they belong. But anyway,
we question that relationship, to be honest. But, it is also two actors that are being brought together for this arc of scenes. You don't really know what that vibe's going to end up being. But they definitely feel like they are both rivals and they can give it to one another.
Which one's meaner? That's really what it's about.
Earl's meaner in the beginning.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. Because in the first episode, Judy's pretty...
At first, she is definitely soft and fluffy.
She's wearing this beautiful wrap dress. She's very elegant.
And then it's like the character changes a bit.
They dress her in these like sharp
power dressing.
These like villain outfits. Okay. So now later on, Val is setting the table for dinner, or Judy's helping her. And again, they're marveling at these beautiful plates. And everybody's so excited about this. And then I guess Gary has come over and he goes upstairs to check on Earl, and he invites him downstairs for dinner. Gary goes to wash up.
Yeah, he goes to wash up. And then I noticed this is interesting. Earl pulls out this bottle of whiskey from his sock. He's like a flat bottle. And he's taking swigs of it. But it was weird because I looked at it again, especially on the screen grabs, and I was like, I've never heard of that whiskey. Like, what is that? So I looked it up. He was drinking this thing called J. Darby. So
that sounds kind of familiar.
It's a fictional whiskey company. It was it was made as like
for TV,
for prop. The first time it was used was in Dallas.
They both film on the same lot, so they just pulled that prop from the prop department.
That's so interesting trivia, because you're all about product placement usually. And like when Karen was drinking a cola, or with the milk carton that kind of looked like Knudsen or Adar Farm, but it was never
tape over, one portion.
Yeah,
of
remember
the
there was that one with the cornflakes, and they taped over Kellogg's, and you just saw cornflakes.
So yeah, it was interesting.
I wonder if that's partly because if they're using alcohol as sort of a negative thing in these storylines, right? Whether it's Sue Ellen or Gary, they don't want to have an actual brand be the responsibility of
right. They can't come back and sue you for like some kind of defamation.
So that bottle of J. Darby does come into play, because in the next scene when they go down to dinner, Gary and Val are just like, oh my God, what is, because the Trents are feuding again across the dinner table. And I have to say, Mr. Earl Trent has a lot of disdain for Southern California.
Oh, yeah.
Scene, it's really funny. So eventually he excuses himself to go to the bathroom, but he is not going to the bathroom. He is going to take another swig of that J. Darby. And so by the time he comes back, he is so heated that he blows up. The salad goes flying, and his fist goes into at least one of the dishes, if not
a couple.
two.
I think he broke a few of them.
Those brand new dishes that Val was so proud of.
But you know what? I kept shouting. I was like, don't worry, there's replacements.com. You can go on later on. And you can get those 6. You can get those pieces. It'll be fine.
The funniest part of this scene, though, if it isn't the overdramatic Earl Trent moments, it's when Judy Trent, after this is all crazy, and Gary picks him up out of the chair and pulls him out. Judy Trent just goes right back to eating the meatloaf.
That's right. She just goes back. She starts eating.
It's really weird. But, it's an awkward moment. So Gary is now taking Earl to a meeting, finally. And I guess he is now acting as his sponsor. How does that work?
From what I recall from friends in program is when you're working a program, it's recommended right away that you get a sponsor. And at the end of meetings, usually the secretary of the meeting will be like, sponsors, anybody willing, raise your hand. And it's encouraged that you approach that person after and hopefully they're a good fit. It's not recommended that you're really friendly with your sponsor.
Okay.
And sponsors are very no nonsense. If you don't take their advice or work the steps with them, they don't have time for that. Like, next, because either you're serious about getting and staying sober or you're not.
I think that Gary delivered that message, but I still would ask you and you as well. Do you think Gary would be a good sponsor?
Well,
in general.
Plus, the other thing about being a sponsor that it's encouraged is that it helps the person stay sober by sponsoring other people and helps them stay accountable. Like, I can't very well sponsor someone if I'm, still drinking and not sober. So it was probably good for Gary, whether that was sponsor-like behavior for him to leave Earl there. Like, no, nobody would do that.
I don't know if Gary, like we say, Gary being a good candidate, I think he's too busy.
Well, the funny thing is
too much going on.
Is in this very next scene after they go to the AA meeting, and Earl does admit that he's an alcoholic, which is a good first step. But then Gary takes him to this coffee shop, which is attached to a bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I don't know. I mean, I could see Ted Shackelford being like, to the writers, like, what are you doing? Like, no, nobody would do that.
Because it's so
like a convenient plot point.
It is, and it's giving the episode a dramatic moment because they are talking about the disease of alcoholism and they're showing the juxtaposition. In a way, it's a little bit of giving some backstory for people maybe who are just joining Not Slanting, because Gary talks about what he just recently went through. And so it's juxtaposed with Earl saying, I don't think I could ever go through even a day without drinking.
Oh, he says something like, I just don't want the good times to end.
Yeah. And so then it segues, like they get up and there's this bar, like right there.
You're like, oh, well, the good times don't have to end. You can just walk right on over.
And then even Gary walks in and they do this like camera work where it's like, ooh. So Gary's tempted in that moment, but he's strong enough to leave. But Earl obviously does not. And so that's where this episode continues, right? So we have him coming home and Gary kind of gives Val the lowdown of what just happened. And he was talking about how Earl had said that he felt that giving up drinking was giving up the good times. And in that moment, I think Gary even says, yeah, I'm beginning to wonder if that's not true. And I guess he's thinking because this is maybe going to be more tricky than he thought being a sponsor, I guess. I don't know. Right. So then later on, we have Take It Off Ted Scene 2. I think they're about to make love, okay? And we have Val kind of assuring him that, even though this is going to be difficult, she's going to be right there by his side, and she is going to help him along the way so they can really assist Earl to stop drinking together. But then Judy calls with news that he's out drunk or whatever, and then immediately Gary's like, nope, I got to go all on my own. It's got to be from one drunk to another.
Right.
And so he leaves Val there feeling like she's been shut down in this moment.
Right.
The next scene is crazy. Okay. Earl wakes up, like there's this dramatic camera movement of him coming out of bed and he's panting, he's sweating.
Oh, yeah.
And there's this like pulsing red light because I guess they're at some motel.
Yeah, they look like they're at some cheap motel in like Skid Row.
Yeah.
Kind of vibe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So Gary's there. He kind of holds his head down, like, because he's shaking, really. And he's screaming and he's crying, sobbing.
Pretty disturbing.
It's pretty disturbing, actually, I thought, for a, nighttime.
Just kind of really like scary, you know what I mean? To see somebody in this.
If you remember, Gary has been trying to offer him coffee all the time. And he's like, oh, you guys all want to offer drunks coffee. Like, what's that all about? And so he's offering coffee again. And he takes it and he spits it out onto Gary's shirt. And so Gary gets up and Judy follows because she's right there to help clean up the mess on Gary's.
Oh, right. That's where it starts.
Beginning.
That's like the beginning.
The dabbing, like
she says, oh, Val is so lucky to have someone like you who's strong because Earl is weak. And I think Gary says something else like, oh, well, I'm really glad I saw this because this also reminds me the other aspect of the quote unquote good times, which is these moments. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that case, it's like what you were just saying. It really does keep the sponsor in check as well if they're having to have these moments with the person who's still not sober. So Gary never returns home that night because he's out all night with Earl and Judy. Gary calls Val, who's patiently waiting, and says that they're at the hospital. So now he is detoxing, I guess. They took him to the hospital. Val looks fantastic in this scene. She's got this blue crepe dress on. She's very natural. This is the best, I think, Joan Van Ark has ever looked. Well, at least in this season, she looks fantastic. So she goes over there to meet up with Gary, but she's intercepted by Dr. Kramer now, who is overseeing this detox of Earl. And she takes her aside, and she also kind of shuts Val down. I guess Val's thinking that this is going to go one way, and Dr. Kramer's telling her, no, actually, this is how it works, right? Because she says, if you want to help Gary, attend the AA meetings with Gary. But if you want to help yourself, you have to attend the Al-Anon meetings. She says, with Gary being the sponsor, Earl, he's going to be very busy. And I think Val, who's really trying so hard to really hold on to Gary, she sees this as, oh gosh, this is now something I'm not going to be able to share with him. She wants to share it with him. So what did you think about that scene?
Well, bravo to the doctor, for one. It was interesting because, second guessing that if I would have been the doctor, I would have been, if Gary is going to go to AA meetings, let him go. He should want to go, not because you're taking him. And telling her about Al-Anon, I don't think we ever saw Val or Judy go to an Al-Anon meeting. And it would have been interesting to see if they would have written a little bit about that in, because we see Val enabling, co-sponsoring with Gary. No, wrong. Nobody does that, especially the Al-Anon wife. No. And I forget, I guess this was in season 1 when Gary was on a big bender and Sid was going to go after him. And she's like, no, you can't stop him. Just let him go.
Right.
That's what happens. That's her not enabling. There's nothing you can do. So it was interesting. I'm always critiquing, especially these episodes in these seasons, to see how accurate they are and if that would really happen. I don't do that through everything on the show.
Right. You mentioned the Judy character. This would have been a really great moment for her to go to an Al-Anon meeting. I think that would have been something that would have been a great scene. I wonder, though, if in an 18-episode season where she is not really a main character, she's just, that's something they're not going to honor. But for the person who's watching this storyline and more invested, if they had longer, maybe a 25-episode season like they did later on, maybe we would see that moment, because that is the interesting scene you kind of want to see, because we know Val. We're going to see Val further on, but
Judy and Val could have gone together. It would have been
together.
Yeah, and then
not after episode 10.
Not after episode 10, but
Right.
No.
All right, let's get back to the episode. So Earl is sleeping it off. He's in detox. But there's a great shot of Judy up against the wall. She's wearing these pleated pants and this shirt. She looks super, super chic. And then you have Gary leaving the room, and there's this kind of look between the two. So something's going to happen there later on down the line. You can tell she wants a piece of Gary, okay?
Right.
So outside,
she wants to see those hot pants.
Yes. I wonder if she ever saw the blue shorts.
I don't think she even saw the blue shorts.
Well,
never saw the blue shorts. They weren't on. Okay.
Right.
So they go back outside. We think this might be the VA hospital in West LA. Can't be sure, but looks similar to that. Gary tells Val that he is actually feeling much better now about sponsoring Earl. He feels like this was an experience that allowed him to care more about someone else's life than even his own. It was so intense. He says, gosh, I think I even love the guy, which that's a real turnaround in one day. Val is very happy that Gary is feeling better, but I have to wonder if Gary's 180 turn has already something to do with Judy.
It's on its way to being there, because you guys just said they had kind of a look between them.
Because she already was so tender with him in that moment. I don't know. It's weird because, and we can talk about the Gary, his state of mind, maybe a little bit later on. But yeah, let's do that. Okay. So we're going to head into the next episode, but will you join us when we return for our next featured episode?
Absolutely.
Choices. Okay. Yes. We will see you in a bit. Okay.
Okay. Wonderful.
So we're moving back into episode 4, entitled Chance of a Lifetime. And we have a scene in the Farragate kitchen with Karen and Val. And Val reveals to Karen that she's going to go back to community college. And she has this worry that because she's older, that she's going to be like the oldest person at the community college.
I just really liked the natural setting of that moment where Karen's, hanging up a poster in the kitchen and she's eating pizza. It just shows, again, this real grounded sensibility of Knots Landing when compared to other nighttime soaps of this era.
We should note that Val enrolling in classes at a community college is a plot point that's going to return later in this season as well.
Okay, the next episode is Kristen. We've already talked about this quite a bit in the Ginger and Kenny episode, because most of Kristen's activity is with Kenny. She's come to Los Angeles after shooting JR a month ago, and she's at a Hollywood party, and there's a noise complaint, and the police come, and she just happens to be holding the bag, literally, of white powder when the police come. So she's taken into custody, and she's there overnight, and then I guess they release her, but they can only release her if she is picked up by somebody that is a family member or somebody who knows her. And so she calls Val, and she says, "Val, you're my only hope."
Yeah. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah. This is really funny. So when Gary comes home and he sees Val in the kitchen in her thigh-high leather boots and no apron making a roast, he's like, what's going on? Is there a dinner guest I don't know about?
This is the precise reason why text messaging was invented.
Gary is sipping on some orange juice. He loves his orange juice. So she tells Gary it's Kristen Shepard. Gary can't even remember who Kristen Shepard is. I guess he met her only like when she was 10 or something. But Val explains, no, it's Sue Ellen's sister. And he's like, oh, shit.
Yeah, immediately it's like, uh-oh.
He's like, why did you bring her back here? And I guess Val says, oh, it was kind of awkward. I didn't really have a choice. And he's like, this is not a good idea. She is just like her sister. She is trouble.
Birds of a feather.
Kristen comes in. She's newly showered. She kind of stares adult Gary up and down. You can see that moment there. And she starts playing on Val's sympathy right away. She says, oh, I've become very close with your daughter, Lucy. She's told me how welcoming and comfortable this house is.
Right. And you know, I was going to say it's this pattern, too, with Valine, where she's always so sweet and giving to any of the younger female characters because, again, I think it's Lucy in her brain. It's
like she's craving to do that.
She's just craving to mother and nurture. And, of course, this causes a problem with Gary because, you know, Gary does not trust her at all.
And Val offers to let her stay for a couple days. And Gary's like, this is Sue Ellen manipulation 101 right here. Okay. So she goes back upstairs to get ready. And then Kenny comes over to pay off some loan or something. And there's that funny scene. We've already talked about it a lot in that other episode. The way that Gary can see right through Kenny. Kind of we were talking about in the last episode with how men understand men and women understand women. That was that moment where Gary's like, okay, all right. Yeah, this is going to be a problem with Kenny, like the faintest scent of a good time. He's gonna be
easily distracted.
Yes. All right. Up next, we have Take It Off, Ted. Scene 3 of this season.
This is probably the season where he takes it off the most, I think.
I'll be curious to see in season 3 if we see as many of these scenes.
I don't think it's going to happen as much, but I do think they were taking advantage of the fact that he's always tanned. You know, they're just always picking.
Sometimes the shots feel so exploitive in a way because they're including elements from the scene that don't even need to be there, like of him coming from the bathroom to the bed or whatever. Like, we don't really need to see that in the context of the scene. But yes, thank you for doing it.
You'll be seeing these on the screen grabs because those screen grabs, they're pretty racy, I'd say.
I might have had to rewatch these scenes a couple more times just to make sure I got the right screenshot.
Uh-huh.
All right, so Gary is speaking to Bobby on the phone about Kristen because he doesn't trust her. And there's this little moment where I guess there's some backstory that's given for the people who watch Knots Landing and maybe don't know who Kristen is. It's very brief, though. It doesn't really go anywhere. But anyway, so we have always optimistic Val. She says, why are you doing this? Like, she's just someone who needs help and we can provide the help. She has no one else. And Gary says, yeah. There's a reason she has no one else. And we're going to see that reason very soon. Because later on, when Kenny chases Kristen back from his house to give her her purse, remember Kenny was caught by Ginger canoodling with Kristen on their couch when he thought Ginger was away for the weekend in San Francisco?
Dirty.
Well, Val is there to greet them, and she sees all this, and she is very disappointed in Kristen. So she follows her upstairs, and she asks her, why are you doing all this? And it doesn't take long for Kristen to reveal to Val that she is pregnant.
Oh, boy.
And she'd be looking for a fill-in baby daddy.
Right, she needs a little baby daddy. And you know what? It's fine.
Kenny, though?
He's not the one to pick.
I guess he's better than a drug addict, right? Because that's who she's actually pregnant with.
Right.
So then the following morning, we have Gary teasing Val because He was right.
He told her so, and she didn't listen, but it's okay.
Val tells him, though, that she understands where Kristen is coming from and that if she had asked for help again, she probably would have given it to her because she knows what it's like to be an unwed mother. So she can understand the way those wheels may have been turning in her head. And then Kristen overhears this and she's like, well, don't worry. I'm not going to ask for anything anymore, even though Val does suggest that she stays even longer, which is kind of crazy.
Nope.
But Kristen declines, and then Val leaves to go get her keys to go drive her back to the hotel or whatever. I don't know. I guess she eventually goes back to Dallas and jumps off of a pool, while she's on PCP. But anyway, Gary asks Kristen, what's really going on here? I can see right through you. He's like, I'm a hider from way long ago. There's more to this story. So I'm not sure what he's alluding to there. Like, is that in context of her shooting JR? Or is he talking about maybe she also has some problems using...
Wasn't that something that was mentioned?
Yeah, Val and Stephanie had answered one of our questions from the previous episode. Let us know what the backstory was. Or not
because we were not
happened to Kristen after she went back to Dallas.
Right, we didn't watch Dallas.
Kristen replies to Gary, why, sir, a lady never reveals all of her secrets. And I guess at that point, Kristen and Gary toast from one black sheep of the family to another. I love her top there in that moment, right? She's got this like Renaissance mutton chop sleeve top on. It's like blood red. I mean, she's pretty. I
will say I would have liked to have seen her in Dallas.
Yeah, I didn't watch Dallas every week, but I do remember liking Mary Crosby in this role. All right, heading into step one, we have one of the most outrageous Take It Off Ted moments of the season. This is Take It Off Ted 4. He is wearing those blue shorts. He's like hulking over the side of the bed. He's obviously a little sad, and then he gets up. He pulls his legs. I'm like, should I be describing this to the people that are...
He was hoping that there was going to be a little slip up, I think, if you know what I mean.
I'm describing this to the people that are only listening to us on Spotify.
Yeah.
Okay, now, what happens here is that he's upset because Val asks... Earl missed the AA meeting that he was going to meet him at. And so then I guess he went to go see Earl afterwards. And I guess Earl was still sober. He had just decided to skip the meeting because he was too busy writing. So Gary is concerned about this. And then Val's like, oh, don't worry about it. He's going to be fine. And then she reminds him that Gary had promised to help her with the ERA benefit at Diana's school, help with the lighting. And he's like, what? Oh, hell no. I ain't doing that. He says he's too busy with this new parts deal over at Knott's Landing Motors.
And again, this is part of that whole thing where like Gary is getting pulled in like so many different directions. So he's got his job responsibilities. Right. He's got the Earl sponsor. Right. He's got Valine.
He's got Abby starting to pull at him. Abby. What Val is seeing here is that other things are starting to invade this space that she holds private with Gary. And it's only going to get worse as the season continues. But yeah, this is the beginning of this pattern again bubbling up for her. All right, now we're moving into Breach of Faith. We've already talked about this episode quite a bit, but the last remaining chunk of this episode that we haven't gotten to is the Gary and Val stuff. It starts off with Miss Judy Trent arriving at Knott's Landing Motors.
Just walking down Crenshaw.
She's just walking down Crenshaw.
I think it's always funny seeing that because we live close to the neighborhood where Knott's Landing Motors was filmed.
Yeah.
Now that place is unfortunately gone. They tore it down. They built like a school or something.
So we have Judy coming to see Gary, and she's just at her wit's end because now that Earl's stopped drinking, he's even worse.
Yeah, she can't handle him at all now. It just seems like they didn't even have any chemistry before, I don't think. But now it's
almost like she was using the alcoholism as the reason why her relationship wasn't working for her. But now that apparently is under control, at least for now, she's got to come up with some other excuse because she's really interested in Gary. So she's saying, oh, he's selfish and he's vicious and all these things, which,
I mean, he's very bitchy.
A little bitchy.
when he delivers his lines, they're always very cutting. Yeah. I mean, and I think it's funny how they made him, he's a writer, but he's not soft and fluffy.
She's like, I can't stand it. I'm a man in my life, not a little boy.
Yeah.
She's very dramatic as well, let's be honest. But that's part of what makes her so fun.
Yeah.
Now, Gary advises her that it's rough in the beginning and that it's definitely going to get better. And then I guess at that moment, the nosy neighbor Abby arrives and she can see this interaction. They are introduced. And then...
Yeah, she just has that look in her eye. She's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
She looks behind her.
Well, she overhears when Gary says, you can call me at any time.
Right. And she kind of like walks by and she gives this look like, oh, okay. Like she knows what's going down here.
All right. Now in the next scene, we have Val at the OBGYN office of, I guess, Dr. Bender. And she actually runs into Ginger. There's that little moment where Ginger tells her that he's pregnant, blah, 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 blah. But the real issue here is that Gary and Val are trying to conceive to have another child. Gosh, that would fill Val's little empty nest hole there that she
wouldn't have to rescue any more baby birds.
Right. So then in the next scene, we have Val back at home in the kitchen and she's looking over this, I guess it's what's called the rhythm method, right? It's this chart. And what the OBGYN had told her that if she checks her temperature on a daily basis and finds the optimal temperature for conception, then she should, get it on with her partner.
Yeah.
And Gary comes in, he takes a swig of something out of the refrigerator and he goes in and gives her a kiss. She goes, oh, orange juice. So she tries to explain this rhythm method to him. And then he's like, well, what happens if I'm not here? She's like, well, then I gotta call you. Right.
And then he suggests something like, oh, he could get a beeper.
Right.
Which I thought was really like, oh, you have a sex beeper. So, hey, get over here now.
Yeah.
It's time. It's the time.
God. It's cute.
It's a cute moment.
Yeah. Now, of course, this is a plot point that is going to come back later in the season. But for now, we have a phone call interrupting this moment, and it is Judy Trent. And immediately, Val is ticked off because they are going to Laura's barbecue that evening to celebrate her real estate license. And I guess they had agreed to help set up. So she knows that if Judy calls, that Gary is going to be pulled away again. And he says, oh, no, that's not going to happen. Don't worry. I'm going to be there with you at the barbecue.
He also gives the number at the Averys to Judy, so that if there's an issue later,
well, that's why
they
Val's
can call.
So pissed.
Right. And he should have a beeper, really. He really should have a beeper.
For all these women that are...
all the sex beeper for everybody.
For all the sex that he's having. Oh,
right,
gosh,
for all
Gary.
the sex, anybody, beat me.
Okay, so she does call in the middle of the barbecue. Richard picks up, he says, Avery Realty. Oh, it's such a good line. Okay. And then he says to Gary, hey, Ewing, we got a very sexy sounding woman or a very strange man.
I thought that was cute. I know it's maybe not politically correct.
Right.
But it is funny.
Right. So getting onto the phone, Gary has to then tell a disappointed Val that Earl has gotten drunk and he must go find him.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise.
All right, so Gary meets up with Judy. This is that moment where Judy is wearing that red power jacket, this like two-piece outfit. It looks like something out of Flash Gordon. Mm-hmm. Suddenly she looks much more angular, much harder, much more butch. Can I say that? She kind of had that butch moment in the last episode too.
But she was a little more soft and fluffy at the beginning.
Yeah.
Now
she's getting a harder edge. She looks like that Nagel print or Pamela Lynch from
the Falcon Crest.
So this is really interesting because she tells Gary that Earl had to hit the bar at the writing convention once he got into the room and saw all the competition around him. He couldn't handle it. So she doesn't know where he is right now, but Gary has suggested they stick by Earl's car because eventually he's going to come back for the car. So they're waiting, and this is that moment where Judy's like, Gary, I think you know everything about Earl and I, but I don't know anything about you.
Yeah, she's making a play for him at this point. It's getting very obvious. She's done with Earl, and she's ready for somebody new.
She wants to know what makes Gary tick. He says, oh, I'm just a simple country boy.
I'm just a simple country boy. Doesn't she say something, but we're kind of similar?
Yes.
Even though we have this different exterior.
Even though we look so different on the outside.
We look so different on the outside, but we're the same on the inside.
Similar. And that is when Earl comes into the picture and he can see that there's some closeness being shared between Gary and Judy. And so he like walks through them. And this is where he's like super, I can't say this word, but it's a C word.
Camp.
Well, camp, that word I could use.
Super
that word
camp.
I could use.
Oh, he's really camp.
He is just camp as a row of tents here. Super obnoxious. He's drunk, by the way, if we did not mention that. And so he says something like, oh, yeah, with me, you just shove some soup in my face and like put me to bed. And she deadpans, whatever you say, dear. And then he returns back, most of which you don't understand, darling.
Yeah, both the bitch fest was going on there between them.
And then there's this moment where he says something like, oh, Tex over here should fall right into the kind of guy that you like. You like these urban cowboy types. Fad of the month, he calls it.
Yeah.
Guys with hairy chests and mom tattooed on their bulging biceps. And then he even intimates that she's been sleeping around with other bodies from other cities. So it's this like tense moment that keeps ratcheting up. And then eventually Gary's like, let me just take you home. Let me get you out of this. And when Gary does that, he goes in to punch him, but he moves and accidentally punches Judy.
He misses and punches Judy.
Whoops.
Punch and Judy.
Punch and Judy.
No, that's for that.
I was waiting for that. Okay, so he like hightails it out of there in his car, which is real bitchy move there on his part. And then when Gary goes to help Judy off the ground, he says, oh, I should probably go after him. And she goes, don't. Stay here with me.
Stay here.
Later on, we have Gary coming back to Judy's apartment, and he's asking if there's any ice or a cloth or something because he wants to give her a little bit of an ice pack, I guess. And then he goes to call Valine at the barbecue. And this is terrible because he completely lies, right? She asks, is Earl okay? He's like, oh, we haven't found him yet. We don't know where he is. And then Val asks, well, where are you?
He's like somewhere downtown.
He says he's in a phone booth.
Yeah, in a phone booth when he's in her apartment.
And meanwhile, he's like gently placing the ice pack on her face. And he says to Val, maybe you shouldn't wait up.
And obviously at this point, we know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you can see the tension kind of building in the room. And then Val says to Gary over the phone, Gary, I love you. And it's one of those moments where
he doesn't even say, I love you. Just he's like, me too.
Yeah. Judy in the background loves the fact that he's lying right now over the phone.
Oh, she's getting off on it.
Yeah. Later on, they're on the couch. She's like reclining on it. She looks like a painting from the Haunted Mansion. I'm telling you.
Oh, that that ghoul lady.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And she's praising Gary for his gentle touch, which is nothing like Earl, obviously, right? And I guess the thing is, like, she doesn't quite have the ice pack on her face. So he's like, you got to leave it on your face or for it to do anything. She says, oh, don't worry. I'm not going anywhere. Okay, so later on, we have Judy basically seducing Gary with coffee, right? These are these cool mugs, right? Those stacking.
Oh, those stacking plastic mugs. I'm
pretty sure Abby has some of those too. I saw them in another episode.
I see them from time to time at the Goodwill,
Val is probably calling, but they don't answer the phone, and there's just this eye contact. And so then Gary leans in and plants a kiss on Judy Trent. Oh,
Judy.
Gary! Now, the following morning, Gary does the walk of shame. We all know that look. We all know that bedraggled walk of shame look, right?
Yeah,
he's carefully trying to come in.
Yeah, he's coming in quietly, and Valine is there awake on the couch.
Hello.
Listen, that is probably the worst.
What did you think she was thinking at that moment? Do you think she knew? Because there's moments in Joan Van Ark's performance where it looks like she knows. She can see right through what's going on with Gary, but then there are other times where she really does show empathy for what's going on as well with Earl and Judy. So it's an interesting play there because she does ask, where's Earl? Did you find Earl? And Gary says, oh yeah, we found him. He's back at home sleeping it off. We don't really know if that's true or not, but we do know that something else happened that he's not telling Val
I don't think that she knew at this point. It didn't seem like it.
Yeah, because doesn't she even apologize to Gary about her behavior the night before?
Yeah, which I thought, oh God. And the fact that he let her do that is kind of shitty.
Yeah. She's like, oh, I'm proud of what you're doing with Earl and Judy. They need our help. And I guess at that point, Gary's already feeling some guilt for what has just happened. So he says, oh, I spent a lot of time last night thinking about the two of us. And I really think that you and I need to be spending some more time together.
And so at that point, he pretty much is making a play for her to go up to the bedroom.
Yes.
And they can fool around right now.
He says, what's your temperature now?
Yeah, what's your temperature now? Which I was thinking, wow, man, 2 ladies in one night.
Right.
I mean, that's, but, that would make sense for a compulsive liar kind of narcissistic vibe, right? He'd be like,
It's just crazy that he's able to switch like this so quickly. There's obviously something broken in him. Yeah. We'll talk about it more as we continue on with these episodes. Now, we flash to Take It Off Ted moment number 5.
Yeah, Take It Off Ted 5.
Oh, my gosh. It just keeps going. He's already getting ready for work, and Val has made him breakfast. And she's like, what are you doing? Like, I thought you just said you wanted to spend more time with me. You're
and it was
work?
Saturday, too. She mentions it Saturday, and he's like...
Saturday's the most busy day.
Busiest day. Which
it probably is. And he does say that he's doing this. He's working hard for Val and the new baby he throws in as well, by the way.
Yeah.
But then he says he's also doing it for Sid to repay him back for all the good things that he did for them at the end of last season. So this is really playing on Val's sympathy here, not only for her and this potential baby that they might have, but also for her friends. So he's real manipulative here and not so likable.
We know that Ted Shackelford is a very nice person.
Guy, yeah.
So it must be really difficult to play that. Yeah, you're nice sometimes,
because Val gives the character so many opportunities to say something and to open up to her truly. Even in this scene, she says to him, I feel like there's something you're not telling me.
Yeah.
And when we were rewatching that episode, I thought, there's actually 2 things, Val, that he's not telling you. He's not telling you about Judy Trent, and he's not telling all the crazy things that he's doing to Sid's business behind Sid's back.
Yeah.
Ay.
Well, we're back now to Knots Landing Motors, and guess who shows up again?
Yes.
Judy's back.
It's now her bruise on her face is very obvious. And
it's more pronounced.
Big glasses to kind of cover it. She says something like, I've thought about it, and I thought, maybe we shouldn't do this anymore.
Yeah, we should end people.
This. I had this big, long speech of what I was going to say. And then Gary says, is that what you really wanted to tell me? And she says, no. And Gary says, well, good, because I thought about it too, and I still want to see you.
Right. And now Gary's coming off even worse than what we just said like a moment ago. I was just like going, wow.
I have to say, it did feel in that moment that Ted Shackelford struggled to act that line. Because he knows that it is so against character for this guy to do this. Like, why is he so conflicted? There is a scene later on, we'll talk about it, where his reasons for being with Judy is more explained. But in this moment, maybe he didn't have that information. So here we have him just being a dog.
He's just a dog,
She walks off. She says, call me.
Call me. She walks down Crenshaw.
Oh, gosh. All right, moving into episode 8. I know we said we weren't going to cover too much of the Knots Landing Motors drama in this particular podcast, but we kind of have to because at this point, some of it does set up some story for Gary and Val coming up. So at the beginning, we have Abby admitting to Gary that she has overheard this conversation over the intercom. Remember, Gary had with the mobsters, the comic book mobsters, Frank and Roy.
The gorillas.
Yes, regarding that parts deal that Gary is totally in over his head with. And so she suggests that Gary meet up with JR, who is visiting Los Angeles the following week for some oil convention. She says, listen, I know how hard it is to get $50K in Knots Landing without letting anybody know that you're asking for $50K, right? Which, how does she know that? I don't know.
Well, anyway, she's a busy lady.
Gary is like, absolutely not. There always are strings attached when it comes to my family. I am not interested whatsoever. But Abby underlines to him that these guys mean business, and I like you. I don't want to see you get hurt. Now, later on, Gary is back at home, and I think Roy calls home to remind Gary that they have set up a meeting to pay off this debt, right? This $50K that is needed to pay for these stolen parts that they've sort of verbally agreed to. And so there's this moment where I guess presumably we don't hear what Roy's saying, but Gary's like, oh, no, don't talk to Sid. Sid has nothing to do with this. And Val is sitting right there and she can hear all this.
Yeah, she knows something's up.
And then Gary kind of shuts her down. He's like, I don't want to talk about business at dinner. Again, Val says, Gary, is there something wrong? Is something you're not telling me? So clearly he is harboring these secrets, even though he's had several opportunities to talk to Val about them. Okay, in the next episode, A Family Matter, JR has come back into town.
JR is in town.
And Abby and Karen and Val are all talking about it from the front seat of Karen's station wagon. They all fit They all fit.
Yeah, no, I'm saying I remember my mom had a station wagon, like a Pontiac station wagon.
Those things were huge.
Yeah, they're big, and they had that fold-down handrest. It's almost as high as the seat, and there was a seatbelt there. So,
well, Val is in that middle spot there, and she is super uncomfortable because she does not like JR at all, even when Karen is sort of giving him some compliments, saying that he was charming the first time that she met him. But what's really happening here is that Abby is plugging the two of them for more information about JR because they are going to be dropping her off at the hotel that JR is at. She says to them, oh yeah, I'm going to go have a rendezvous with JR. But they actually cannot even believe that she's truthful in that moment. Val says, that is not even remotely funny.
Yeah, but she's
doing it.
She's doing it. I know. They think she's BSing, and she's going there.
So after meeting with JR, Abby is convinced that he will help loan the money to cover this $50K that Gary needs. And so she tells him that she bumped into JR in the hotel coffee shop.
Oh, yeah.
So he knows right away that she is manipulating the situation, right? So Gary underlines to Abby that he does not want to do business with his family because it always gets too personal. There's always too many strings attached. And Gary references this great choice he has between the two gorillas or his brother, the goon.
Yeah.
Abby tells Gary, though, that the two gorillas are going to be doing more than just breaking your fingers. So he's going to have to figure something out here. And so she's really trying to persuade Gary by playing on his sympathy for Sid by saying that even though Sid doesn't know about all this, he still needs these parts to satisfy that repair aspect of the contract from the fleet of cars. Gary says, no, he will not ask JR for the money. But later, Abby still brings JR over to Knots Landing Motors, and Gary is fuming.
Yeah.
She is nothing if not tenacious, right? I will give her that. So now she takes JR on a tour of Knots Landing Motors where they run into Sid, and Sid is working on that engine.
Right. And then, of course, JR is very intrigued when he hears about the engine that gets 100 miles to the gallon.
Right.
And, he's an oil man.
Right.
So JR sees a potential opportunity in this small town guy that he might be able to take advantage of.
Yeah. So Abby says, oh, hey, listen, why doesn't everybody come over to my place? I'm going to have my first dinner party at the new house, and we are all invited here. And Gary says, absolutely not. Val will never go for this. And Abby says, oh, don't worry. I'll call her to clear up any potential scheduling conflicts, which I thought was funny that she's like already sidestepping Gary. Now, in the next scene, I guess, I don't know if it's at Karen's house or I think it's at Val's house. Karen comes over and says, what are you guys aren't dressed? You're not coming? Like, you have to come. If this is Abby's first dinner party and I gotta go, then you gotta go.
I don't know. I can't remember who said the reference that it was going to be like burgers and fries.
Yeah.
Who said that? But
yeah.
Obviously what's happened is Abby is having a caterer come and do the party for her because she doesn't cook.
No. There's that great moment where I think, because Val is not eating, not really because the food is bad. I'm sure the food is fine. It's just that the company, she doesn't like the company.
She's disgusted by having to be near JR.
Right.
And
doesn't he toast? JR toasts to his new friend, I guess, Abby. And then he looks to Gary, who can't toast.
Right, he can't toast because he doesn't drink.
Ah, terrible. So now after dinner, this is where things really erupt because they're in the living room over at Abby's, and he is laying in now on Lucy, or actually Lucy's boyfriends, who he references as a string of weirdos. And he says how he is going to straighten out her current beau, because he's not good enough to be a Ewing or something like that. And when Val hears that, she's over on the card table in the corner. She's actually finally eating. Did you notice now that she's away from JR, she's nibbling on some food. So when she hears this, Val completely loses her cool. She gets up and she says, how dare you get involved with my daughter's life? JR kind of suggests to her, oh, well, you haven't done a lot of mothering for her over the years, have you? She says, well, how could she, right?
Because she was stolen away.
Exactly.
By the family.
And she says, I am not going to let you do to Lucy's marriage what you have done to Gary and mine, right? So it's this really, really tense moment. And you can see, everybody in the room is just like, oh, shit, this is...
You have to be time to leave now.
Yeah, exactly.
Can we go home?
I will say that Joan Van Ark just rocks it out of the park in this particular scene, and Val is never at her best than when she's squaring off.
Oh, when she gets angry,
JR.
She's great. Well, she's always great, but I'm just saying, like, when she's angry, she's giving it. And that's kind of what we want to see sometimes because...
Well, we want to see this type of behavior more in her address of Gary, but as we are seeing here in season 2, there's a reason why she's enabling him. There's a reason why she's letting him off the hook. It's because she's invested so much in that relationship, and she almost wants to prove everybody else wrong.
Right.
At some point, though, she might have to cut her losses. Okay, now in the next moment, we have Take It Off Ted number 6 for the season. We're already at 6. We have Val wondering to Gary, why is JR here? Why is he here? What does he want from us? And Val is suspicious that Gary might be getting involved in some business dealings with this man. And Gary's like, absolutely not. I have no interest in doing that. Meanwhile, he's thinking in his head, oh, I've got these 2 gorillas going after me and they're threatening violence. I may have this as my only recourse. She asked him to promise to her that he is not going to do any business with JR, and he does that.
He does. Another promise broken.
Oh, gosh. Oh, but Gary looks really worn out in this moment. I kind of felt bad for him. He's what a pickle this guy is in by now.
Yeah, he's done a lot of weird things this season.
Maybe he needs to go meditate, do some yoga. Wouldn't that help him to center him?
Maybe he just needs to go buy a ranch and relax.
Oh, yeah. Get some horses, maybe.
Get some horses.
I would suggest that.
Yeah.
Well, later on, we have more of this take no prisoners, Val.
No, it's a showdown.
Herself. Yeah, she goes to see JR. She looks really pretty in this outfit as well. JR is cordial at first. He says, I can order you up a drink or possibly some yogurt. He always has these great little quips. But Val is basically imploring JR to stay away from Gary now that everything's going so well for him. And I'm thinking, they are? He says something like, did you ever think that maybe the reason why Gary is such a hot mess is because of you? That you were like some noose dragging him down with you?
That was pretty terrible.
It's a terrible thing to say to her. And I think at that point she says, gosh, you are vile. And so then JR is like, I don't have to listen to any of this.
And again, best performances is when she's angry.
Exactly.
I love it.
She says to him as she's leaving the room, I don't blame anyone for shooting you. I only wish I'd done it myself.
Ooh, maybe she did do it.
Well, I was wondering about that. I was thinking the timing of that. Was that then like implicating her as a possible suspect? But I think at that point...
I think that storyline was already done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So she's just like sticking the knife in a little bit, which he deserved. Now, we have a scene back over at Knots Landing Motors we're going to talk about only as sort of an impetus for what happens at the end, because we have Roy and Frank showing up, and they are super manhandling Abby, and there's this sort of Prince Valiant, moment.
Coming to the rescue for Maid Marian.
Yes. Oh, gosh, can you imagine? So Gary brawls with and then subdues the bigger gorilla, Frank, but you can tell here that the threat is still there. They were coming for that money in that moment, and so at that point, Gary has no other option now that so much violence has been suggested. He has to go and accept this check from JR. And this is a funny moment because when JR gives him the check, Gary looks at it and it's blank. He didn't sign it. So he's like, well, what do I have to do to get this money? How much are you going to torture me? And that is when I think JR says, oh, well, this does come with some conditions. And the condition is that I need you to give me some sort of preamble into Sid, right? He wants to find out more about that engine. And
right.
So this kind of
more
sucks
information
for Gary here because he is now on the hook for even more. Because what does JR do? He sweetens the deal.
Yeah, gives him double the amount.
Double
gives him $100K.
In cash.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, she says, that's real money, Gary. See, doing business with a family ain't all that bad, is it?
No, but of course now he's in another pickle.
So Gary was actually correct again, just like he was with Kristen. Doing business with his family always comes with strings, but at least Gary won't get his kneecaps broken.
Yeah. You don't want those beautiful kneecaps broken, do
No,
you?
because they're attached to those beautiful thighs. They're attached to that beautiful backside. They're attached to that beautiful chest.
Yeah, we don't want that to happen to our sweet little Gary.
All right, now we're going to go into our next featured episode. This is number 10, Choices. And for that, let's go back into our discussion with Diane Letulier. This is called Choices. This was written by L. Virginia Brown, and the director is Kim Friedman, who has directed some other episodes of Knots Landing, I believe even in this season. The first scene that we can discuss here, it's Judy coming to Knots Landing Motors. She wants to see a little bit more of Gary because it's been 2 whole weeks since they last balled. You know what I mean?
2 whole weeks.
She needed a little bit more
loving. Okay, so she comes to Knots Landing Motors. This is great because Abby, who is now on the scent of Gary as well, she's tracking this woman's movements throughout the showroom, right? Because she's already met Judy, if you remember in the other episode, right? Judy says, why don't we get together tonight? Because I think Earl's going to an AA meeting. We'll have all this time to ourselves. And Gary says, oh, well, I'm taking him to the AA meeting. And she says, oh, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. So she's kind of coaxing him. And eventually she wears him out. And so he's like, okay, let's go to dinner.
They agree to go to St. Michael's.
St. Michael's. This is an important thing that they mention that because Abby is listening. Corner.
Abby overhears.
And when she hears this, she concocts this crazy, mischievous scheme where she calls the restaurant to get the time that they're going to be there. She
pretends like she's the secretary.
The secretary.
Yeah.
Needing to make the reservation. And then they're like, oh, you already have one.
Right.
And she's
like, at this time.
What time is it at?
Yeah. So then she calls Val right afterwards, and she sets up a dinner date for them later that night. It's crazy. So you already know what's going on here. Then on the way home, I guess, Abby's trying to plug Gary for some more information about these Trent characters. This is a great line. She says, she's awfully pretty. Too bad she doesn't smile more.
Oh, that made me laugh so much. That's like a line my mom would say sometimes. I mean, my mom is a very sweet person, but sometimes she'll come up with those superficial.
It's a backhanded comment.
Comment.
Yeah. Right.
I love it.
Okay, so then we have this scene, and it's Judy and Gary having this, I guess it's not really a romantic dinner, I would say, because they're having kind of a tense conversation, but the restaurant is very romantic. I don't know where this place is.
Yeah, if anybody out there knows that location, tell us.
St. Michael, what St. Michael's is. There's multiple rooms, multiple levels to it. There's
it's kind of very old world. Kind of restaurant.
Gary's even wearing a suit and tie to this little dinner here. But the conversation is pretty heavy because Judy is revealing to Gary that she is done with Earl, and she's really trying to gauge Gary's interest in perhaps starting something with her exclusively. And he's like, huh? Like, what? He's like, if you're going to leave Earl, but you have to make a clean break and do not let me be part of that decision. And so she's like, oh gosh, it sounds like you want to stay married to Val and you want me to stay married to Earl. What's that all about? Is that just so we can keep this affair in check? She says something like, I want to leave him so that I can have 100% of you. And Gary says, that's just not possible.
Yeah, that's not how he's
interesting how there's in the background, there's this piano playing. And it's like the piano is timed perfectly to end at this great line because Judy challenges Gary. She says, well, if you love Val so much, then why are you my lover? And then the piano just breaks right there. Oh, we never even did it earlier. We need to do this. We need to add Gary to the Scutsy scorecard, right? Because when he was having that dalliance with Judy, he slept with her. We're just going to put on one notch here.
Gary's got another notch on the belt.
Scorecard is for people who are in monogamous relationships. That was someone behind their partner's back.
Right.
So we now have Richard and Gary in a tie. Woo.
I think Gary's going to surpass
Gary.
I think so.
Then it cuts over to Val and Abby arriving to the restaurant. Now, they've already gone to another restaurant for dinner.
Yeah, they're going to have a brandy and a coffee.
Yes, Abby had suggested
nightcap.
So it looks more coincidental that they're
right.
I know this great place we can have a nightcap. It's there. It's still early enough. Oh, okay.
So they walk in and Abby's kind of scanning the room and she stops right when she sees them so that Val has to see them as well. And it's really awkward. Obviously, they go up to the two of them seated and Judy's very quick to say, oh, listen, I had a fight with Earl. I really needed to speak to a friend. I called Gary. I don't have a lot of friends out here in Los Angeles. And then Val says, oh, yeah, I totally understand. And she's like, I'll be right back or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's pretty obvious that Valine knows that something's up or something has happened. I mean, whether it's been admitted to or not.
Sitting here wearing this like outfit with these like pearls, and Gary's wearing a suit and tie. This is not a casual, I need to talk to a friend real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like something.
Especially this restaurant, it's super elegant. Val even said when she walked in, she goes, how are we going to afford this, Abby? And Abby's like, oh, my ex-husband's going to pay for it.
That's right. She stole a credit card.
So Val runs out. She hails a taxi cab. She says, can you take me to the 16,000 block of Seaview Terrace? Which I thought was interesting. Not Seaview Circle, but whatever. Gary comes out after her, and he gets his car from valet, and he leaves. And that leaves Abby and Judy to have this real juicy soap moment, right? Where Judy can see right through Abby. She's like, oh, that was some coincidence, wasn't it? And Judy's questioning why Abby wants Gary or something like that. And Abby's like, it's nothing to do with me right now. This is between
you. Yeah, this is between you guys.
Yeah. Judy in that moment with Abby says to her something like, oh, don't worry, I'll wreck the marriage, but I'm going to be the one that gets Gary. And of course, Abby's like, oh, please. She's not even worried.
Right?
Yeah, she doesn't have to worry. And then Judy leaves the check.
Yeah, Abby says, oh, Gary left you to hold the check. And then she goes, no, you're holding the check. And then she leaves. Back at home, Gary meets up with Val, who is in the living room. And I have to say, this is a difficult scene to watch if you're a Gary fan.
Now, I would say, now, Diane, I know this is your power couple.
Yeah.
How did you feel seeing this scene where Gary is just...
He's outright lying.
Outright lying.
He's saying to her, oh, it is exactly what I just said it was. The Trents are fighting, and we're here to help both of them. So I was just there to console her after this fight. He says, we are not having an affair. I could never betray you like that. There's no me without you. And then there's this real, like, groovy psychedelic music that's played. It's almost like this hypnotic spell that he's casting over Val. That's what it felt like to me.
Yep. That's what they do.
What did you think?
There's so much packed into that scene because there's an expression in the Al-Anon side of things to an alcoholic that's not really working a program, is that if their mouths are moving, they're lying. And the gaslighting and all of that. Oh, you're crazy. I'm not drunk. What do you mean? I'm not cheating. It's all in your mind. You're just imagining things. Why don't you go to an Al-Anon meeting? So that's Gary not working his program. And there's so much wrong with his behavior because part of working a program and being sober is rigorous honesty. You're learning not to lie every time you open your mouth. And, he did that to her a lot over different things. So
it's really tough because in that moment, he even then takes it a step further. He says, I need you to trust me.
Right. So,
and he's just like,
and she's been through so much with him already with his past drinking.
And I do think
this is their second marriage. Remember, they just remarried when they moved to Knott's Landing. So she's been through it all with the lying and the cheating. This is not their first rodeo.
It isn't, but I think that's probably why she is so able to, I don't want to say forgive. She's not really forgiving here. She's just kind of accepting it because she's invested so much in this. And this is all coming around again. It's like everything that they just went through in those last 3 months when he fell off the wagon. It's like she's really trying to hold on to this. And again, like I say, when I watched the whole season, every time these episodes would come up, I'd be like, oh, Val, why are you like allowing this to happen? But then when I'm watching the individual episodes, to me, it's more like, okay, I can see that bond that they have.
When you love an alcoholic, you keep lowering your bar of what you will tolerate. And when you love an alcoholic, you love the best capable person that they are, not necessarily what they're doing when they're lying and cheating or whatever. You love the best version of them. So she kept lowering her bar. She put up with a lot. And, that was Val. Some very strong Al-Anons in that world who are zero enablers and hardcore, like they don't tolerate any of that. And he would have been kicked out, bing, bye. So she was an enabler in a way, and it was hard to watch that.
It's interesting because we've obviously watched the whole series, so we know where this goes. But
Yes.
if you were to not know, if you were Val in this moment, you weren't to know what's going to happen in seasons 3 and 4, you know, then maybe it makes more sense that you're holding on to this still, you know? Ugh. It's tough. Anyway, we'll get to it. So the following day at Knott's Landing Motors, Abby comes in and she's like, oh, wow, that was quite a night last night, wasn't it? Wow. You know, she's like, oh, so did Val jump to the wrong conclusions? And Gary says, no. I was like, yeah, Gary, she did. She didn't address it with you in that moment. She was thinking this stuff. You were just, again, gaslighting her, right?
Right.
Abby's really laying it on thick. She's like, oh, you know, if I were your wife, you're such a handsome guy, I'd be nervous sometimes. But then again, Judy's not really your type, is she?
Yeah, I love how she throws. She's another one of those backhanded comments.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we know what's coming.
Yeah. So then she says to me like, "Oh, I just want you to know, Gary, that if you ever need anything, please let me know. You and Val are so important to me.
So important to me."
Oh gosh. Okay. Now we have this really big scene because we have Val heading out the door to go jogging, and as soon as she opens the door, there's Judy.
There's Judy.
Judy says, oh, last night was so awkward for me. And Val says, yeah, it was awkward for all of us. She's like, yeah, I think we should talk. But then when she gets into the house, she's like, oh, suddenly I don't know what to say. And there's this like weird quiet moment. And Val says, I want my husband. And Judy says, so do I.
So do I.
Oh, it is tense. This groovy music.
I was kind of hoping it was going to end up being a little bit of a fist fight, you know. Well, you know, I wanted Valine to like pull her hair and push her out the door.
What I would have done.
Well, I think there's an element. You notice at the beginning of the scene, Val is still very friendly to her. You notice? It's really like...
He's too sweet. She wouldn't do that.
Well, Judy goes hardcore. She says that they're lovers. She says they've been seeing each other for weeks, that they're both in love with each other, that last night was a big turning point, that she's going to leave Earl, and the two of them want to be together. And then Val says, I think you should leave right now. And then Judy even turns the knife even more. She says, whatever you and Gary had that brought you together or is keeping you together is gone forever.
Is in the past or whatever. Yeah.
And then Val says, get out. So she leaves. And it's just super, super intense. It's a very soapy moment here for this show. And I thought it was really good. And I can imagine Jane Elliott playing another role, being someone you really want to see in these types of scenes. So I thought it was good. Really good. And again, that music. Which
all the music feels like you're watching either Columbo or remind me of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, which is like Stu Phillips. It's very like cinematic.
Yeah.
And like
it's elevated from a normal score.
It's a different kind of vibe to what you see in the other episodes.
Looking as an old man, I'm 50 years old now. You know what I mean? Like, but when I was a kid, I would never get these things. How there are elements of Knott's Landing sometimes that are like more gritty. I never saw that as a kid. But I think there's these elements where whether it's John Plachette in his episodes, they often tend to have like a little grittiness to them or something. So it's kind of interesting. Again, we talk about the brow meter, whether something's highbrow or lowbrow. We notice that those things kind of ebb and flow depending on who's behind the camera. Now, later at the fair gates, this is weird.
The dinner at the fair gates is kind of
going on, and they still accept some dinner invitation over at the fair gates. So there's Gary and Val across from each other, and Gary's wearing this really cute tan turtleneck. He looks really cute.
With a members only.
Oh yeah, later on
I wore this in honor of Gary. Yes. This is the brown members only.
He has the brown members only. What you don't know is that he's wearing Gary's blue short shorts on the bottom.
No.
We're not gonna see that.
I'm wearing kind of a shirt that looks like Gary though too.
Okay, so there's this really awkward moment again at the Fairgate dinner where they're talking about the protein. I guess I don't know if Gary thinks it's pork, but it's actually veal. And then like Val is like picking at her food and it just gets really weird. And Karen is like, what is going on here?
Valine is like on the verge of tears the whole time. Yeah. You can just see her trying to pull herself together. It's very awkward. Nobody really looks like they want to eat anything anyway. Especially, it doesn't look very appealing. You know, like when we were talking to Claudia the other week, when she was saying how that food is not really meant to be eaten, but like it would be there.
Right.
She used to eat
Trust
it.
me, I have worked on set. I've had food in front of me. I worked on General Hospital with food in front of me. I remember we were shooting a scene where there was a big brawl in this bar, and I know not to eat that food. It's a hamburger. Normally you'd be like, oh, a hamburger. What could go wrong? No, you do not bite into that thing. You know how long that has been around. Okay, anyway, Val gets up from the table and she goes to walk out the door, and Gary stops her and she says, I know all about what is going on between you and Judy. I had a visitor today. And she storms out, and Gary's like, he's like, he apologizes to Sid, and Sid's like, I think you need to apologize.
Yeah, I mean, Karen and Sid are now privy to what's going on.
Val zooms off in her Pinto, and then we cut to later on this great scene at the beach, which I thought was interesting when we rewatched it. I was listening to the audio, because a lot of times when they're at the beach, they have to re-record it later. I don't think they did. I think they just let the natural recording of that scene, even with the waves in the background. Right. And it's like the slow movement of them walking down the beach. We know, of course, that the beach is Val's happy place.
It looks like it's Santa Monica Pier, too, in the background, I think.
So Gary apologizes to Val, and then he uses that age-old line that all the cheating husbands use, which is, this has nothing to do with you and me. And she's like, how can you say that? She's like, you're lying to yourself if you think this has nothing to do with us. And so then she goes into this big whole backstory again about everything that happened in their relationship. And it's beautiful up until the point where she starts to blame herself. She's like, I was overcompensating, like, ever since we moved here. I guess it's a big deal, right? You're uprooting your whole life and you're moving somewhere else, but it's even bigger for them because they weren't even together for all those years. So they're really trying to build something here.
Right.
He says to her that he loves her. And then she slaps him. We watched it. We knew it was coming. I was still shocked.
Yeah, she slapped him hard. That was good.
She slapped him hard.
He deserved more than a slap.
Then she immediately hugs him. And there again is this moment where there's this silence for a while and they're just holding each other. And that's that moment you really do see that they are connected and there is that bond. Even though, again, we know what pulls them apart so many different times over the course of the series, you know that their bond is so strong. And then they kind of just slowly walk back the other direction. But I don't know, it's really tough because, like you say, you want Val to be stronger, but then you also do root for the relationship. And you know, having watched the show, that Gary is not always going to be this person. You know, we watched an interview with him where he talked about how, and this was maybe in season 4 or 5, and he said something like, you know, I'm really sick of being like the loser. He wishes that his character would win more. And I think the character does win more, you know, as it goes on.
Sort of.
These first few, sort of, yeah. But in these first few seasons, it's a rough road for him.
I think it's got to be tough. You can tell he's a nice guy, you know what I mean? Ted Shackelford. So it must be very hard playing this character who, it's not like he's a bad guy. He just makes bad choices continually.
He makes a lot of bad choices. Okay, that's the thing.
So you're just sitting here going,
we're just talking about the Gary and Val stuff in this particular podcast. But think about all the other stuff that's going on with him at Not Sliding Motors. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
Bad decision.
Yeah.
Bad decision.
Okay, so the following day, Judy shows up again wearing that red outfit. And she's feeling pretty confident, though, at this point. I don't know why she's feeling confident. I guess she feels like she wrecked the marriage with Val the day before. She feels like, oh, she did her work, and now she's going to pick up the pieces, which is Gary. And Gary's like, why did you do that? Why did you tell her? And she's like, well, I think that Val and Earl should know. And Gary's like, you told Earl? Like, he's thinking about him being an alcoholic. Like, this, what are you doing? He says there is no good time to tell Earl this information. And then I guess it's kind of revealed where she's like, well, you made me feel like you loved me or whatever. And he's like, no, I never did that. And then he does explain why he was hanging out with her, which is that he felt for the first time that instead of being dependent on someone else, Val, that someone was depending on him, and he liked feeling that way. So that was interesting, I felt. He says, I can only judge myself and whether or not I'm growing if I am with Val, if I can see how she sees me. And she's like, oh, that's pitiful. And then she leaves and we never see her again. But I thought that was really interesting because I was trying to figure out what was missing. Because Valian said, there's something missing here. Why would you go do this? Why would you sleep with Judy? What was it? And so I guess for him, that's what it was. That was the explanation. What do you think?
But at least he was honest and honest with himself, telling her, see ya.
Right. So she leaves and she runs into Abby and she says, oh, well, good luck with that one.
Yeah.
You're going to need it. And there's that great line where she walks into the office and she says, Gary, you ready for me now?
You ready for me?
And then the credits. Oh, so good.
I'm ready for my close-up.
It's so
what a classic. Love it.
So a big shout out. Thank you to Diane Letulier for joining us.
Thank you for providing us with some interesting insight into those episodes. And we'll actually see you again in the next episode, which is going to be part 2 of our deep dive into Gary and Val in season 2 of Knots Landing. We will finally have that climax to that Judy and Earl Trent story arc.
It's juicy.
It is juicy. It is juicy. It's a little bizarre, I would say.
I like it. It's fun.
And we will also be recapping the third of our featured episodes of Gary and Val. That is The Loudest Word. And Diane will be joining us for that discussion as well.
I guess there's only one thing left to say.
Yes, I know what it is.
Yeah, what is it?
It is,
we will see you then.
Back on the sack.
Bye.